How you guys doing? Hey, Tim, 911, Dartmouth. Is it Kevin? Is that right? Waha, how you doing? Good morning. Graham, good to see you. Good grief. What a nice bunch. We've got snow. We're covered in snow. Sound and video working okay, guys? Hi, Isa. Oh, yeah, Tim, you guys got it too? Okie doke. What I wanted to talk about today is sort of around and about relative to a book some time ago that Dominic um, had sent me, and I sent it to some other guys. And it was a story about how Waltham watches in the United States back in, this is 1879, I think, how they became a threat to the Swiss watch business. And I've been fooling around with a lot of, yeah, Waltham, Mass, exactly, uh, that I've been fooling around with um, are these Chinese watches. It's not so much the fact that China has had a lot of watches and there's a lot of experience doing watches, but the I think the change that's taking place are in two ways. One are the independents who you really don't hear a lot about. Um, and the guys who are part of the AHCI and so forth, but rather you have these companies like Peacock and they call Lace Locker, I think, who are putting out some, in the case of Peacock, some very nice watches, some very good quality watches, tourbillons that usually cost, they're going up over 50,000 bucks a shot. 35,000, I think, is what Tag Heuer had for their. Well, usually Tag Heuers are relatively not crazy expensive, and they use ETA and Solida movements. So, you know, 35,000 bucks. That's crazy a whole lot for a Tag Heuer. On the other hand, Peacock sells tourbillons, some very nice ones for around 2,500, and their Peacock special one, I think it's called their plumage line. They're selling for around 5,000 tourbillons. So anyway, so is this going to impact it? Is that what happened with Waltham? Is that they were making these fantastic watches. The Swiss were sweating bullets because they didn't know how the Americans were doing it. And so they actually sent spies to Waltham to find out the process. And then they took it back to Switzerland and adopted it to what I'll call the Swiss watchmaking culture, which included a lot of little individual um, companies who were doing, sort of cottage work, I guess, and supplying different specialized parts. Um, then what happened with Waltham's, this manager who took over running it decided what he could do is make them cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Well, that really hasn't worked with the Chinese watches in terms of their, excuse me, they're off the shelf, the ones you can get at AliExpress for under $1,000. But that really hasn't affected the Swiss. On the other hand, as they start increasing the quality and the complications, you know, what do you guys think? You think that'll have an impact, or what do you think's going on? Hi, Fabrez. How you doing? Oh, Fernando. Fabrez. Hi, John. Jimmy, good to see you. Isa, you need to talk about memories, the collaboration with bargains that are tourbillon makers. Mimigarin. Okay. Why do I have to talk about those, Isa? I don't know who they are, to tell you the truth. So that's one reason. Do they make all of the Chinese um, do they make all of the Chinese tourbillons and then they sell them to? Is that what they're about? Yeah, they're after Larique. What we're doing, what we're doing, the Swiss already know about. We're not doing anything out of Switzerland yet that I know of. Um, I tell you some things that are going on that I've heard about, and we were offered to do it, and we decided not to. With things like the Chinese make some very good crystal glass for the crystal over and under the dial, under the over and under the dial, over and under the watch. And so, somebody gets a watch that's Swiss made and yada yada yada, but they've saved I don't know how much using the Chinese crystals, but who can tell the difference? I couldn't. Okay, so they just make it. I don't know anything about them. Mimigarin. I'm gonna find out about them. Thanks, Isa. They sound like if they're making them for the Chinese, that gives me an idea. Yeah, I'm going to write that down. Always looking for new ideas. Okay, thanks. I got that down. I'm going to find out about those guys. Yeah, maybe what we ought to do is make our own. I've already made my own tourbillon, so that thing is checked up. I don't know how many people would is on the one hand, if you look at a tourbillon, it's 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 really amazing horology. That's what I'll say about it. I pull out my model every time I get, every chance I get, and just look at it. Hang on, I see. Come on, work. This was probably made with a phooey. Won't wind up again. I probably broke it. There we go. Um, this kind of movement where you have the movement changing gravity positions is really interesting. And for a pocket watch, that you got the pocket watch that goes into your vest pocket. Yeah, but otherwise, they're really not the greatest. I mean, they're not. They don't do anything except add a lot to the cost of the watch. Now, FP Journe had one that was rather than flat like this, it's sort of the the wheel of it or the wheel of the cage sort of went up like that. And I don't know whether that would do any good either in term just for the fact that you're trying to keep your gravity rather than pulling in one direction, you're going to a lot of different directions. Now, if you're a couch potato, yeah, that might help for tourbillons for couch potatoes. Okay, what else do you guys have? You need to talk about okay, mem origin. Okay, the collaboration with Bahar, Bahrain's, and they are tourbillon makers. Okay. Hi, Tuna. How you doing? Okay, doke. So what else is new? What else is going on? Best bet for the Chinese is to keep prices so low that we cannot ignore them when spending. Peacock is a good example. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, there are a couple ways that I look at it. On the one hand, um, there's sort of a certain mystique, if you will, about Swiss watches. Um, that's special. Seiko makes fabulous watches, but it lacks that Swiss special character to it. Even though a lot of people ignore the specialness of Swiss and are happy to get a Grand Seiko for a much better price. Now, the on the other hand, the Chinese watches are a much better price than Seiko. So who knows what's going to happen with that? Hey, how you doing, Michael? Michael the Dark Star. Trio from Orlando. What's the difference between tourbillon and carousel? Do they do the same thing? I don't know. That's a good question, though. Carousels, they're a big deal. I know, and I think you're right. I think they do the same thing. Carousel is simply another thing because this actually probably looks more like a carousel with it going around this thing right here. But I don't know. They may be doing something else. The ones that I really are interested in are the Remontois, and I don't know. I suppose somebody at some point is going to maybe start bugging the Chinese about that. Say, hey guys, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be profitable if you guys could start making some remontois that Swiss watchmakers could simply tuck under their watches with nobody being the wiser or very few being the wiser and get away with it. Now, I forgot what the percentage is, something like 60% of the watch to be Swiss made, and I don't know, Remontois, I don't know how much you would consider it to be that. Age Locker, okay, is a make that keeps on cropping into my feed. I just went to check them out, and my Norton antivirus says dodgy site. Yeah, I didn't get the dodgy site from them. I think there are a lot of these places I run into that are dodgy sites, um, Graham, and I just back out of them as quickly as possible. But Ace Locker wasn't. I didn't have that problem with them until I probably. Okay, yeah. I tell you, the one that I ran into, I had good luck with, is called Age Loker Shop. Okay, one word. Let me put it up here. If you want to check it out, and it's got. Let me know if your Norton finds this one a problem for you. I put it up there. I've got no problems at all. Graham, see if that the one that I just put in down below there works for you. Royal Oak Tourbillon. You know, um, Tim, the Royal Oak. There's one Royal Oak I really like, and that's the first one, the jumbo. I get without anything in it. That is a nice watch. I think that one and the some of the ones with Patek Philippe before 2009 when they had real hairspray. Okay, let's see. Sweater weather 911. No kidding. Um, Surgis makes a lot of Chinese tourbillons, but they look so suspiciously cheap. All right. Hey, Cesar Roca, how you doing? Merry Christmas, and now it's time for Happy New Year. I got this great New Year's card from Fiedler. Fiedler is a hand maker, a Swiss hand maker, and there was one of the first things I found out about him. I got this Patek Philippe magazine, and they have things about everything. Well, they had this big article about Fiedler. I don't know who they were, and they all of these hands and everything. And so, on our first couple of watches that Larique made, we used Fiedler. On our latest one, I forgot what the problem was. I don't. I think it was just. I think it was the price was pretty steep, so we thought, well, we'll try somebody else. But on a simple three-hander, man, I'll tell you, they make really nice. So we wanted observatory hands, and they made those for us, and very good thing. Then when we quit using, we get this. We start getting New Year's cards. Tuna, Sujus market a lot of Chinese tourbillons. Sujus, okay, but they look suspiciously cheap. How does something look unsuspiciously cheap? I get we're suspiciously cheap, or some of them are not. They're not very suspicious, but they're cheap. I don't know. 9/11. That's a funny thing. The watches that I really want to have, oddly enough, don't include a tourbillon. I have the tourbillon that I made from a Chinese, God knows who, that I got on AliExpress and cobbled together myself. But I don't know. That's another thing is that it's the the real quality of something. I think has to do with the extent to which there's some kind of somebody does the work somehow in a way that's not something that you could put it on an assembly line and just rock them out. But having said that, I think probably most watches, even your top watches, with maybe some exceptions, but these little shops all over all over Switzerland who are making these parts. Um, I don't know. Now, some companies, I think one would be Romain Gauthier. I think he also makes all the parts, and I understood. This is why Chanel bought a friendly share. They never did tell us what what the friendly share was. But one of the reasons I understand was because Gauthier made his own part. Some years ago, there was an article about back when Marco Lang was the head of Lang and Heim. They had an article about how a single screw in a Langenheim watch was 100 euro. I couldn't believe it because it had to be specially made and everything. It was very interesting kind of stuff, and I can see that. On the other hand, there's a story that was in the book about the about Waltham watches, and this is 1879. There was a at this sort of exhibition that they had a box, and this they had a young girl there working on it, and she was turning a crank or something like that and making watch screws, and she would make a huge number compared to what they could do in Switzerland. And that was one of the most impressive things that the Swiss found that the Americans were able to do. Essentially, what it was putting in what 19th century technology into watchmaking, and so this is something that you know something's going on there that makes it really interesting. It was like, do they have these little cottage things and somebody cranking out the screws and these other places doing different things? One of the things I know is that when we get the parts for Larique watches, there's different levels of on gloss that you can ask for. You want a lot, you want plain vanilla. I think ours is sort of medium vanilla um, on gloss on that. Yeah, that John, that's a great story. It's a great engineer story. Hey, Junior, good to see you. Norton aborts my connection even with your link. Oh, does it? Okay, it says URL blacklist. I wonder why. I don't know. Maybe my wife has. It could, it could well be. I don't want a tourbillon. Too much complication only for looks and a cool factor, no benefit. Yeah, that was why I've never been really in a big hurry to get one. The thing about a tourbillon though, it's just such elegant, more than elegant. It's almost magical horology that they use with it. That's what I like. I still haven't figured it out. I don't know. Maybe one of you guys have. Is that yeah, I get the this part how you can rotate um, the balance wheel, the escapement, the pallet fork. I understand by looking at my little toy here how that's done. But the question is how does this part get to the quill train? Because what this essentially does, it one tooth at a time, it releases the the wheel train, so they can move the hands around and everything like that. So that part of it is still a mystery to me, and it's a very interesting one. And when I was trying to figure out how a remontoire work, I mean, I what I like to do is take something to understand it, and I'll make a cardboard version of it. And what I found was that Derek Pratt did the same thing. Instead of using, what did they say? Instead of instead of some computerized thing, they simply took out Derek Pratt, and he was a buddy with George Daniels. George Daniels and Derek Pratt would make cardboard. Somebody asked him about what they use, what their, what kind of computer technology they use, and they said it was cardboard. Yeah, I'm not. I've got all of the tourbillon I want. I really would like one of these that did a remontoire. That I would really like to see. Hi, Tony. How you doing? How are things down there in South Padre? Yeah, I know. Yeah, Chanel. Chanel owns a. This is a company. I've said this a lot of times, Tim, and you're right. They own 25% of FP Journe, probably the same amount of Roman Gauthier, but they're not saying. They own all of oh God, I want to say Black and Decker, but it's another watch company. They have some other. There's some movement making things too that they own. They own a lot of stuff, and the big thing, the important thing about Chanel is that they have this special building that they built for nothing but making high horology components, including the watches. They've got, like, in my watch, my Monsieur, it was like Chanel 1, and now they're up to about Chanel 8, I think. That's how they name the movements. And so Chanel's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all for women's watches. And that I think is very interesting. The one that they have an automata that they made with and they have Coco Chanel with with scissors. It's I just thought, oh, come on, it's really really sort of weird because they have sort of their J12 is another. That's the one they do with Finissi, and they make basically what Finissi does. It makes Tudor movements for Tudor as well as some version of it for Chanel. They own part of that. They've got a lot of money. Same with LVMH. These are ones to keep an eye on. I think I because they got the power. On the other hand, you have Patek Philippe. That's I don't know. They're cranking out about 50,000 a year. Rolex about 1.5 million, something like that. It's much more than people assume, and they still aren't enough for Rolex. Omega, part of Swatch. They do what they do. Um, I think same thing with Breguet, but I think finally some people have begun to recognize with Breguet, if you're going to have a something to reflect the original Breguet, Abraham Louis Breguet, uh, you don't want to put the silicon in, and they stopped doing that. They put in the Navicron, which is also owned by Swatch. So what are we going to do? Oh boy. Um, Oh, they own. You're right, Jimmy. Not too long ago. I think their most recent acquisition was a hunk of MB&F. Yeah. No, Chanel is one. Like I said, keep an eye on them. If I think for what I was able to do was to get my watch, my Chanel watch, at a very good price. Not because um, I'm so smart or can wheel and deal. But most people just They hear Chanel and they're not interested. I'll tell you, the guy that I made the deal with, he had the, I think by the end of our my offer that I made, they had the thing in the mail already. They were very, very quick to accept my offer and ship it to me because it's just not something a lot of people are going to ask about, and that's too bad. Hermes, same way. They hear Hermes and they think Hermes. That's don't they make scarves and things like that? You know, it's very different. Same thing with Louis Vuitton and Mose. What's his name? It's LV for Louis Vuitton and HM something something. Those guys. That's another one. Fashion. They're rich, so super rich. And this is one of the things that you have a lot of the best watchmakers in Switzerland. Um, they're they're sort of on a thinner rail. I think companies like, um, and I could be wrong about this, IWC, oh, some of sort of the middle of the road ones that aren't owned by Swatch or by Richemont. Those guys are on a thinner rail. Hi, Tony. Hi, Abdul. Does the deadbeat seconds in harboring work like a remontoire? Michael, I don't think so. I took a look. The true seconds that's in the Jaeger-LeCoultre. I looked at that. Just that it's wonderful thing. They do have this other spring that sort of goes around and pops the jumping seconds on the true seconds. That sort of does it every second. Something the mainspring forces just this one thing like that. And I thought it was a remontoire, and I don't think it really is. For some reason. But I'll take a look at that. I haven't really looked closely at the harboring two jumping seconds, but it could be. That would be that would be an exciting find. I think the kind of it, the real remontoires, I think you got to go to places like Groeneveld and F.P. Jorn and Gerbel and Force. They're still the best watchmakers. I think Agenor for movements. Uh, some of the other the some of the whole series of things. F.P. Jorn is not only owned by somebody else in part, but they also own other things. Even including a restaurant in Geneva that F.P. Jorn opened. They have they're called both a case making company and a dial making company. Right in what's the name of the town? It starts with the E. I think I never was able to pronounce it right. The one where Agenor is located. It's sort of a part of um, of Geneva, very near the French border. So anyway, well, look, guys, I'm out of time. I'm gonna get in trouble in a second. Um, yeah, okay, I got you, John. Same thing here. Um, whatever you guys like to talk about this afternoon at 4 o'clock, we can have another chat. Right now, I've got to get the snow shovel and move some of this stuff. My wife doesn't like me pushing snow, so that'll be a fight. Anyway, take care. Hope to see you this afternoon.